page of the Constitution that lets everybody off the hook. That lets everybody off the hook. Oh, these cowardly senators who couldn't face up to what the president did and what was at stake for our country are now going to have a chance to give a little slap on the wrist. We censure people for using stationery for the wrong purpose. We don't censure people for inciting insurrection that kills people in the Capitol.
You're here.
Yeah. Yes.
The contemporaneous notes from the Congresswoman deposition, possibly leading to other depositions, to then entering an already public statement. An already public statement into the trial record. Did you try and reach out to her at all? And then separately, did the White House either indirectly or directly have any involvement in the decision to call you witnesses?
You know what? I mean, I don't want to. We tried this case as aggressively as we could on the law and on the facts. We did everything that we could. We got from the president's lawyers exactly what we wanted, which was the entering into the evidentiary record of the statement by our colleague, Congresswoman Butler. And we got that. I was able to read it before the entire country, and it became part of the case, and it became an important part of our case. If, again, we could have had 500 witnesses and it would not have overcome the kinds of arguments being made by Mitch McConnell and other Republicans who were hanging their hats on the claim that it was somehow unconstitutional to try a former president, or that the First Amendment somehow gave him a right to incite violent insurrection against the Union. And though, they're going to have to live with those arguments that they made. But we think that we overwhelmingly proved our case. I think Mitch McConnell's statement showed that they knew we overwhelmingly proved our case. And all that might have happened if we had, bargained for 10 witnesses on our side, 10 witnesses on their side. The first person they said they wanted to bring up and to cross-examine is Nancy Pelosi. They would have turned the whole thing into a circus. And we conducted it with solemnity and legal seriousness and decorum, and you saw the conduct of the lawyers on the other side, and you know what Donald Trump's track record is. We were not going to allow them to turn it into a farce. Yeah,
her comments sooner,
the statement, at least the first time that I saw the statement, was yesterday. It was that statement was released yesterday. So, but what's interesting is that the premise of some of these questions is somehow that we failed to prove the facts of the case. I think in the eyes of the entire world and the country, we overwhelmingly proved the facts of the case. And Senator McConnell just conceded that that wasn't the issue. And then you got to talk to the 43 senators who are basically saying no amount of facts would have made any difference to them because they didn't think that the president was subject to the jurisdiction of the Senate. That was the argument you just heard Mitch McConnell make. So forgive me for reacting strongly to that, but that seems to me to be a completely bizarre conclusion to these events, to say that somehow if we had just had one more witness, Mitch McConnell would have come over to our side. Just listen to his words. Yes?
Follow up on your earlier question. Did the White House convey to you in any way that they did not want witnesses so that might draw out the process? Did the White House tell you they wanted a short and get trial?
I never spoke to anyone from the White House or to President Biden or to Vice President Harris. None of them. No. And I made the call. So you want to blame somebody? Yeah.
In terms of witnesses, how you stop them.
Well, remember, when you get in a situation like this, if we had needed any witnesses to make our case, then we would have gone all the way and insisted on witnesses in a 6-week trial or an 8-week trial or whatever. We didn't. We overwhelmingly proved our case. Senator McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, just conceded that, right? All of them are saying, well, you won on the facts.
You said something. It was two things that we had to do, right?
And we'll just take one more.
We had to first have a motion for witnesses which we did when we were supposed to do it, which was after the prosecution and the defense made their case. We made a motion to allow for witnesses, and then after that, we requested one witness. The Republican counsel for the president, the former president, said he was going to bring 100 witnesses. We got the essence of what we wanted, which was the statement of Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler. The defense got nothing. And I think that what you're doing is making a lot out of and dismissing the incredible evidence of havoc, mayhem, and what this president had done over a period of months to bring destruction to our democracy by talking about if you had 2 or 3 more witnesses, what was going to happen.
One thing I would just add to it is, remember, there's a reason that the request for witnesses comes at the conclusion of the case, is we had an opportunity to see the former president's counsel, and decide whether we needed to provide additional witnesses. Don't forget, our case was filled with dozens of witnesses who were presented by way of video and statements and recordings. And it was only last night we learned about this new information, and we got the best of both worlds. We got that testimony in the record before the jury without any risk associated with it. And that's important to remember. This is a congresswoman who repeats a telephone call between Kevin McCarthy and the former president of the United States, in which Kevin McCarthy is pleading for help, saying, help us, we're under attack. The president first tries to blame another group, Antifa, and he says, no, Mr. President, these are your supporters, and we're in danger here. And he says, well, Kevin, maybe they care more about the election than you do. That came before the Senate jury through the statement that Mr. Raskin read. So we got the evidence in of the witness that we wanted to present, and that was a victory for us.
The defendant, President Donald John Trump, was let off on a technicality. And that's essentially what you heard Mitch McConnell say, that they let him off on what they perceived at least to be a procedural issue, which was because of the constitutionality of the matter, they couldn't proceed to the substance. Doctrinal interpretation, both on the liberal side and the conservative side, strongly disagrees with that assessment, but they let him off on a technicality. And you also heard Mitch McConnell go up there and say, essentially, that we overwhelmingly proved our case, that substantively, Donald Trump is guilty of inciting an insurrection. And it has been, I know for all of us, an honor to work and a solemn honor to work on this case. And even though we didn't get 67 votes, this has been the most bipartisan vote for impeachment and conviction ever. And we know that we spoke the truth on the Senate floor. And the American people, by and large, have agreed with us. And one final remark on all of this. This episode from January 6th on has been very taxing on the American people. Ushered in a new era, thanks to Donald Trump, of political violence. And so, most of all, my reaction to the decision of a majority of Republican senators not to convict Donald Trump, despite the overwhelming evidence, is not only sadness, but also apprehension for the nation. Because as I said during my remarks, the defense counsel's main argument is that there's nothing wrong with what Donald Trump did, and he could do it all over again. And as a nation, we just have to hope that that isn't the case.
All right, I think that we're going to close it up. I just want to remind everybody that this was the most bipartisan impeachment in the history of the United States. It was the largest vote in the U.S. Senate ever to convict a president who's been impeached. And it was the most bipartisan conviction vote in the Senate that we've ever seen in a case of a presidential impeachment. But there's one other number to look out for if you listen carefully to what's being said now after the trial. There are 57 senators who voted to convict on the facts in the law. Now, add to that the number of senators who say they believe that Donald Trump was factually guilty, but that the Senate didn't have jurisdiction or there was some other constitutional issue. But just take the ones who say, we don't think that we could convict him because of this January exception. He was able to get away with it at the end of his term. If 10 or 15 or 20 of them say that, that means you've got a supermajority who are saying that the president actually is guilty of his crimes, which we think we have overwhelmingly and convincingly demonstrated to the American people. Thank you all very much.
That was a post-trial press conference with the House impeachment managers who remain proud of their prosecution despite losing the